inspired to push through. Because there's a spark in you. Breakthrough or bust. Hello, welcome back to Breakthrough or Bust. I am so happy that you are here, and I am also so happy that Gail Jones is here with us today to share her story. Gail is a worthiness coach, and Gail, tell us a little bit more about that.
Okay, well, I've been an intuitive coach and author and writer for, writer 40 years, but coach for 20. And when I got diagnosed with breast cancer in 2012, I had to claim my worthiness to live. And I did a really deep dive of evaluating my life, my choices, and also my coaching practice. And when I realized when a lot of people come to coaching, they're often stuck, as you know, or in some major life transition. But often the reason they're stuck is because they lack a sense of worthiness. And so when you get to the core issue of worthiness, you create dramatic shifts in the client's life. So I dove deep for 9 years to heal my body, claiming my worthiness and bringing this to them. The key parts of claiming your worthiness. And the key I just want to say about worthiness, because there's such a shame to it to some people, like, oh my, why don't I feel more worthy? We did nothing wrong for not having a greater sense of worthiness. We just didn't get the acknowledgement at 0 to 6 or 0 to 7 in the ways that we could take it in to know, well, we're all born worthy, we are worthy, but to really feel worthy, you have to be seen, heard, validated, and acknowledged.
Yes.
So
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So, well, you're kind of leading us into your story a little bit already. Tell us about, what it was, your challenge, and how you got going.
Okay. Well, when I got diagnosed with breast cancer in 2012, I realized it was a wake-up call. I believe a cancer diagnosis is a wake-up call for most of us to redirect. To me, it felt like a wake-up call to claim self-love and worthiness, as I mentioned. But what's really important, I don't think people know, and I'm just sharing my book. I don't often talk about my book. I really talk a lot about my worthiness platform, but it's called Cancer as a Love Story, Developing the Mindset for Living. And when I first got diagnosed and I was a national blogger, people were following my blogs, I said, I'm going to keep this a secret. No one's going to know about this. This is my private journey. And a coach friend of mine said, well, you're a writer, just journal about it anyways. Just, you don't have to publicize it, but journal about it. So 3 weeks after my lumpectomy, I jumped out of bed in the middle of the night with the title to the book, Cancer as a Love Story. And I wrote for 3 days nonstop, didn't shower, didn't eat. And the wisdom just kept on coming to teach love versus fear. But the key about the book, because when you get in a state of love, it's a lot easier to heal the body. And if you're always in fear, it's very hard to heal. You got to get in a calm, relaxed state to accelerate the healing. But that cancer journey and the book took me on a journey to Arizona, where I trained with Dr. Joe Dispenza, world-renowned neuroscientist.
Oh, yeah.
Personally. So, and a lot of other advanced healers. And 1/3 of the book is for those newly diagnosed, anybody newly diagnosed. And it's written like a journal, not like a tech science, although it's endorsed by a lot of doctors and naturopaths and a lot of different people. But the other 2/3 of the book are about rewiring the brain, and based on my neuroscience. And like a lot of the reviews on Amazon are from men, believe it or not. And people have told me when they're going through a divorce or a career change or retirement, that they found it very helpful, the second and third part. So it's much more than a book about cancer, because again, cancer was a wake-up call for a whole new life.
Yeah.
And my mantra became, say yes to life. Like I lived in Boston, raised my kids in Boston. I would have never picked up and gone to Arizona had I not had cancer. Like, cross country, that wasn't me.
It gives a new perspective, so that, the things that you would have held back before, it's like, nope, I'm going for it.
I'm going for it, right? And you just realize every moment is precious. But there's something I want to share because I don't think this is widely known for a lot of people. And because I did such deep research, I was in the Mind Body program for cancer at Mass General Hospital. It was a 3-month program. It's nationally renowned, teaches a lot of common mind body techniques now, but this was, back in 2012. People came from all over to go to it. But my second opinion breast surgeon said that they were seeing a growing trend that the 3 years before a woman was diagnosed with breast cancer were off the chart stressful years. And another healer told me the same thing. And this isn't really widely talked about. And so when I was in the Mind Body program, I had started writing my book, and with permission, I interviewed a lot of the participants. They're in my book, their stories. And I asked them, what were your 3 years like before you got diagnosed? And almost every one of them were off the chart stressful years. They either had gone through a divorce, they had lost a parent, or they were the sandwich generation, taking care of elderly parents as well as young kids.
Yeah.
So the stress was just too much. So the 3 years before I got diagnosed were off the chart stressful years. It was the recession, big time in Boston, very hard to get work. People weren't paying out of pocket for coaching. I had a part-time marketing job that everybody got laid off. It was just a really tough time.
Oh.
A child going to college. I was a single mom, and I was assigned legal guardianship of my schizophrenic mom. So you couldn't have put one more stress.
Yeah.
Right. So, but I believe from my research and my story, and this is kind of where, ties very much into your podcast, breakthrough or bust. I really believe that the reason I got breast cancer, and my book talks a lot about emotional stress and releasing emotional stress, whether you do an alternative route or a conventional route, chemo and radiation aren't going to take the stress out of your body. You have to address the stressors, right?
Yeah.
But I really believe, having had a schizophrenic mom, I have so much compassion for her journey. She was voted most likely to succeed, and got schizophrenia in her 20s. So, when I was an infant. But I really believe I lived my life on fight or flight. So externally, I was editor of the college paper. I was a high-tech PR exec in a previous career. I was very successful. Inside was a very scared little girl who was running.
Yeah.
So it was a breakdown. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
A physical breakdown the body couldn't take anymore.
Absolutely. I love that you bring this to light too. I think it's so easy. Well, especially as women have been programmed to serve.
Right.
That's pretty much it. And so we have a hard time asking for, much less receiving help.
Right.
And so we pile on and we pile on and we pile on. And not just women, men do this too.
Yes.
But I would say that the experience of a woman as far as asking for the help and
right.
receiving it is a little bit more complicated because of this programming.
Right. Well, we're conditioned to be nurturers, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
And I think that a lot of times you can feel like you're not stressed when you are.
Right.
And I'm just coming out of an illness.
Right.
And I had a forced week off, forced vacation, right?
Right.
And as I take that time away and I'm having to cancel meetings and all of these things going on, it's like, wow, I was really running, like a high level here, like, where no wonder I got ill. Like and here I was thinking, wow, I'm so in balance right now. Like I'm doing a really good job of keeping, but sometimes if we sit back and we take that moment to breathe, we realize that, we might not be quite as balanced as we think we are.
Right. I think that that was the first time I learned to receive, and that I had to make myself a priority. My health had to be a priority. But I love this line, and it's not mine. I wish I could remember whose it is, but being centered in self is not the same as being self-centered. And that's very empowering. Yes. And you have to get centered in self to heal your body. You have to. Yeah. And then the other quotes I love is, no is the end of a sentence. You don't have to go on and say why.
And justify, yes.
learning to say no. And when I say no to you, it's a yes to me. Learning
Yeah,
to say no, I think, is one of the most major shifts you can make in getting better emotionally and physically,
absolutely.
and
Yeah.
setting boundaries.
If you're, squashing the emotions, right? Pushing them
Right,
down, or you're pushing down, I can do one more thing, and
right,
it's going to come out sideways. And
right.
I just had that conversation with somebody I work with, which is actually a private gentleman client,
Mhm.
where, I said, nobody is going to advocate for you except you.
Right,
So, like if this situation isn't working for you, it's not your responsibility how it's going to affect the other person.
right,
Your
right,
only responsibility is to take care of you. And
right,
by taking care of you, you're encouraging them to take care of
right.
them.
I
But
want to go
yeah,
back to something you said earlier, though, because it's really important, about receiving.
yeah,
And so women aren't, a lot of us aren't taught to receive, but this is really key. It's key to worthiness.
yes,
So when you're feeling unworthy, and again, a lot of it's subconscious, you don't even realize it, right? You tend to you tend to attract takers. So people who are
yes,
unworthy tend to be overgivers. So in relationship, they attract takers. And it's really something to be on high alert about if you know
yes.
that you're a person that gives a lot. And, we like relationships that are mutual and reciprocal. I know they're not always 50-50, but it's really important to be aware of that.
Yes, I love that you bring that up. It's so true. And again, going back to that, only you can advocate for you, because yeah,
Right,
that's what happens. You get into this situation where it's give, 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 give.
right,
And maybe in the beginning, it's like, well, it's not that big a deal. It's
right,
okay. I don't
right,
mind. I like giving.
right,
But when you're not able to receive as well, if you can't lean back on that person that you're giving to all the time, then
right,
eventually you will hit that point of
right,
that
right.
stress blow up.
And remember that when you're the giver, which we've all been,
Mhm.
I know from you and I talking, but you're in control. When you receive, you're not in control. So you have to allow yourself to be vulnerable to receive.
Yes,
And also, when you don't receive from somebody that's giving to you, you're pushing them away. You're not allowing them to give you a gift.
yes.
So it works in a full circle. There's a
You
great
break
book.
that cycle for the person. So
Right,
when you think about how you love to nurture and give to others,
right,
when you're not allowing them to do the same, now
right,
you've deprived them of that experience for themselves. And I know, I mean, even just the most basic thing, I was at a grocery store one time, and this woman is coming out with two filled shopping carts and like four little kids, and I mean little ones. And I mean, she's rolling down this hill with both of these things, trying to keep them. And it was like, oh my gosh, please, can I help you? And she's like, no, that's okay.
right,
And I
right,
was so stunned. I was like, why wouldn't you let me help you? I mean, it's
right,
right there. I'm not going to run
right.
off you with your groceries.
Well, this is interesting. There's a book called Receiving Love by Havel Hendricks and his wife. And they were leading marriage therapists. They were on Oprah, all that. And then they started thinking of going through a divorce and separating. And they go, we're therapists. We know all this. How is this happening in our marriage? And we've helped so many people. And they came up with the thesis that a lot of people know how to give but can't receive. And so the book Receiving Love is another tool that helps people learn to receive. I would highly recommend it to couples.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, for sure.
And they had to learn it themselves. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and I love that because, what a fantastic message that none of us are perfect.
right,
Yes, we have these gifts and we share those gifts, but it doesn't mean that there's a weakness within us
right,
if we get some help,
right,
right? And so that kind of goes right into that, right? So they
right.
were receiving help in order to receive within their own relationship. And
Right.
yeah, I love
Yes.
that.
Yes. So being a worthy person, I would to claim your worthiness. One key is absolutely learning to receive.
Yeah.
And there
Yeah.
are a couple other key points on being worthy. It's learning to ask for your worth and being paid your worth. And that's another common issue for women. They often don't ask for their full worth. And I know we have a history of not being paid our worth, but being able to ask for what you're worth.
You know, and part of it is we've got to take personal responsibility for that.
Yes.
On one hand. And of course, and so does society, right? So, you know, I talk about that a lot, where financially we were a burden to our families, right? We had to, you know, way back when, you have a daughter and it's like, hooray, oh great, now we got to find her a husband so we don't have to pay for her for the rest of her life, right? And then she goes to the husband and becomes his financial responsibility, right? So a lot of messages get passed down, and even though those are not so much our times anymore, those messages have continued to be passed down through our culture, you know, through the way we interact with each other.
And going back, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm trying to think where I was. But yes, so women tend to be a little bit more, you know, squeamish about owning their value. They've felt like a financial burden for so long. They don't just walk right in knowing their worth. And, you know, a man would walk into a scenario where they'd say, this is what we're going to pay. And he's like, whatever, then I'll walk. I don't care if I don't have a job. I'm not accepting that garbage, right?
I think it's changed a lot, but I still think, you know, asking for your worth is really important. What they say is,
the woman is going to think about it like, well, fine, it's better than no salary at all, right? I'll take it.
I don't think a lot of women feel that so much, but I think what happens is when a woman applies for a job, if she doesn't have 100% of the qualifications, she might not even apply. A man will apply for any, if it doesn't have all of them. So that's very commonly known in the job search. But I want to go back to, you know, women overgiving, or all, not just women, men overgive too. I have a lot of wonderful male friends and clients that, you know, they've worked on that issue too. But this is where it's key with worthiness. You can read all the books, all the self-help books. I can do it myself, right? You can go to all the presentations, but to really integrate a sense of worthiness, you have to be witnessed. You need to have a coach or a therapist or a mentor who's qualified, because what you're really doing is reparenting that inner child that didn't get that. And this, I'll just say this over and over again, nobody can give it to you. Your spouse can't give it to you. Your boss can't give it to you. Your friends can't give it to you. You have to learn to reparent yourself. But in order to do that, you have to be witnessed.
You have to, and you know, the thing about it is, just in doing that, you're making yourself worthy, because you are choosing to invest in yourself.
Right.
And so that's it, you know,
choosing to be vulnerable.
Yes.
Because when you're sitting there and talking about your hurts and your traumas to somebody, it's really, really courageous work. And that's why I'll keep going over and over again, and let go of the shame. You did nothing wrong, that you do not have an adequate sense of worthiness. 85% of people have a self-esteem issue in one area of life.
Yes.
And even if you had the most ideal parents you could, the most nurturing, loving parents. And again, we're not here to beat up on parents, because they're just modeling what was modeled to them, right? And
absolutely. Absolutely.
Not to blame anybody. But even if you had a more ideal childhood and were well nurtured, our society conditions us to believe we're not enough. Buy more, have more, bigger, better. And so it's in our commercials, it's in lifestyle. So it's all around us to make us believe we're not enough, and we have to claim it ourselves.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. I mean, you know, it's easy to get caught up in even social media, and, you know, everybody is going to show the highlight reel. Nobody's going to show like the laying on the couch sick. Nobody's taking shots of that, you know? So yeah, it's, I say all the time, imperfectly amazing, right? We're here to be imperfect. That's what we're here for, is to be imperfect and experience. When you're perfect, then it's easy and you don't learn. You don't learn anything.
Well, we all know there's a mental health crisis right now for the young adults. And actually it's going down to the younger little ones now. They're seeing, you know, 2-year development, social emotional developmental delay. 4-year-olds now are regressing to 2-year-old behavior, 18 to 16-year-old behavior. But I think this is key. And a lot of the athletes that have committed suicide, the young athletes, so much of their identity was based around performing.
Yes.
So worthiness is who we are, not what we do. And
yes, thank you for bringing that up.
That is the key message that every parent needs to be teaching their child now.
Yes.
And this means that it's not like you go overboard and praise them and turn them into an egomaniac, but it means instead of focusing on the straight A's or the performance, it's noticing their qualities. I love that you're so kind. You're so thoughtful. You're very creative, like noticing those things every day and feeding the essence of the child back to them is really important. And
I taught dance classes for many, many years, and we were teaching competition level classes where they would go and compete. And I remember working with this one class, and a good half the class didn't know their dance. And now I'm concerned because we're about to go in and compete this dance, right? What is going on that you need to practice when you're home, not just when you're here? Well, I don't have time. What do you mean I don't have time? Well, I'm in competition tennis and competition chess and competition, right? And so you're talking about kids like at 10 years old or in 3 and 4 competition level activities.
Right.
That is a lot.
Right.
That is a lot to expect. That and right there, you're almost setting them up to feel unworthy, because how could they possibly be successful?
Right. So I'm also certified in high self-esteem for parents, educators, and children. So I'd just like to share this because it's really important. So there are 3 low self-esteem emotions. We all have them. And they are sadness, anger, or fear. We all have a predominant one we go to. So it's really important to know what our predominant one is, even though we'll have all of them. And in this world right now, we all have all of them a lot, right?
Fear.
But knowing which is predominant. So then the high self-esteem emotions are gratitude, right?
Yeah.
Empathy. And the empathy is a big one, and I'll explain that in a second. Empathy and forgiveness. But this means forgiveness for ourselves too, and empathy for ourselves too, and gratitude for what we do well as well. But the empathy piece is really probably one of the most important things that can be taught right now, especially with all the social media craze. But so, for example, if somebody's being bullied, this is a real stretch for people to understand. That bully has low self-esteem. Someone who is being a bully has low self-esteem. So instead of making it all about yourself, which, it's hard to, it hurts when that happens.
Yeah.
We've all had some kind of experience somewhere along the line, usually where we were mocked or something. But if you can have empathy for that person, for that they have to be really hurting inside to be that mean, right? So empathy is really important. But I brought that up because when you talked about the performance and seeing that performance, and I love your line about imperfection. In the self-esteem training, it's excellence, not perfection.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can be excellent without being perfect.
Yes.
And you'll never be perfect. None of us will ever be perfect in anything.
We're not supposed to be.
We're not supposed to be. And just let that go. And and just really notice the key attributes, and also of the other people, in your life. Notice what, we're all different. Notice their key qualities.
And you know what I like, I came across this advice, I don't know when, but it was about sometimes we do have the bullies or the people who have really hurt us.
Right.
And that will mess with your worthiness. It'll mess with, resentment, anger, all of that. So obviously you don't want to hold on to that, right? It's not good for you.
Right.
And a lot of times people do hold on to because they are just not willing to forgive. And I get that. So if you're not ready, what you can do is allow your higher self to forgive their higher self.
Right. I love that. Beautiful.
And I love that so much because, it's almost like you create a separation from the person in doing that. So it's not so personal.
Right.
and you're stepping out of the wound a little bit,
Right.
but then not carrying the trauma,
I
not
love it.
carrying the resentment.
It's a beautiful bridge. I love that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it
Yes.
reminds me of bridges too, like a lot of times, and I'm sure you do with your clients too, I create mantras for them, right? Help them have mantras. And a lot of people, when they're doing mantras, use I am, I am. So for example, when my first book came out, this is why I don't like I am when you're rewiring the brain based
Yeah.
on the way I do it. When my first book came out, if I said I am a best-selling author, right? The chances of being a best-selling author are very slim on a first book. So I felt like I was telling myself a lie. I was building a lot of resistance, right?
Yeah.
But if I say I allow myself to be a best-selling author, so the allow is the bridge. It's kind of like the bridge you were using with the higher self. That's why I came up with the bridge, right? So if I allow myself to be a best-selling author, that allows a bridge for the new neural pathway to form in the brain, right? And then it also allows the whole universe can support me. I don't have to, it's not like I have to put my nose to the grindstone and make it happen.
Yeah, I love it.
This. So when I use statements with clients, I always start with the allowing when I'm helping them form a new belief. So I allow myself to know I'm worthy. That this is a really key message I would love everyone to get today. And you say that 5 minutes, first thing in the morning, first 5 minutes, and 5 minutes before you go to bed at night. The 5 minutes before you go to bed at night are the most important 5 minutes of the day, because you're actually downloading the software into the brain, right? Which is the hardware. And if you're agitated, you should not go to bed. You should get up, walk around, and do something. But I allow myself to know I'm worthy. That's key mantra to say. And again, we know it takes 45 to 90 days to change a belief, and it's through repetition. So it's simple, but it is repetitive, and it takes vigilance.
That's funny. I actually do something similar on the other side of it. So I am worthy even if I don't feel like it today, or like whatever that is, because as soon as I do that, even if, it negates, like, so now I've acknowledged that little negative voice in my head, and they're like, they were the one about to protest. And as soon as I say that, even if, they're like, oh, never mind. Okay. And it just shuts it up.
Well, it reminds me of EFT. I also use EFT.
Well, that's sort of where it comes from.
So you say the negative emotion to release it from your body. You're tapping it out. And then, even though I'm upset today, I deeply love and accept myself. So it allows the feeling to be there. Yeah. And I want to, there's one of the things that the mantra is really important. I allow myself to know I'm worthy. And this is another key point on integrating a greater sense of worthiness, reclaiming it, because it's here, right? It's here. Is to track evidence of being worthy, knowing you're worthy. And the physical act of writing down the evidence rewires the brain. It takes 20 seconds to start creating a new neural pathway in the brain. So when you're writing that down, you're already working on that. But if you're not used to tracking yourself as a worthy person, you have to train your brain to go look for that. So it's really it's a fun exercise. You start a journal.
Your brain is programmed to only validate what you believe.
Right.
It will only look for, evidence of what you already. So if you have a set of keys that you could have sworn were on a blue keychain, and you're looking all over for them, they could literally be sitting right in front of you. And your brain will not perceive them because they're on a red keychain. So your brain is fascinating. So the more you do stuff like that to retrain the brain, then, once you get past that initial training of it, then that's all you're going to see is evidence of how worthy you are and how amazing you are.
And again, to have the patience and the vigilance, because and I think your age can make a difference too, or the early trauma. If you're 60, I don't think you're going to necessarily change it in 45 days. Okay, if it's really that deep and you have all this accumulated evidence. But it's simple. It's not a hard work. It's just making the commitment that I'm going to say this to myself, and I'm going to track evidence. And another key thing to do is to at least have 20 minutes of quiet a day, because the body heals best in a restful state. We accept new information in a restful state. If you're running, and you don't ever stop and have that 20 minutes, it's also telling yourself, I am worthy. of me time, 20 minutes just for me. It's
Yes.
integral to claiming the
Yeah.
worthiness piece.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things I love to do is just small things around the house as a constant reminder, like use the china on my breakfast, right?
Right,
Or have fresh cut flowers all the time, or,
right,
whatever, the chalice, like
right, right,
whatever it is, so that, it's not like, oh, the good stuff is only for everybody else. No,
right,
the good stuff
right,
is for me.
right.
And I share
Absolutely.
that with everyone else.
Right, absolutely. And also, as I've gone further along in my healing journey and got, become more discerning, I think it's really important. This is a huge word. It's to look for, is you want to be with people of capacity. And so there is a kind of filtering out of who is allowed in the inner circle and who isn't, as you get healthier around your own sense of worthiness.
Yes.
And capacity is tricky because there's another great book I love, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. And when we are elevating, whether it's our career, relationship, or our sense of worthiness, people are going to go away. If people are used
Yes.
to us being at the bottom, and as we climb, they don't do it to be mean, it's subconscious, right? But it's really important that when you're reaching, or you get to a place that is the greatest version of yourself, you want people that can hold you in the greatest version of yourself.
Yes. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah. And especially I feel like, um, I tend to work with the heart-centered people.
Right,
And so they always go to blaming themselves.
right,
Like, oh, what is wrong with me? No, nothing.
right, right,
Their vibration is not where yours is now,
right,
and they're not ready to go there yet. And
right,
that's it. And now,
right,
unfortunately, they tend to leave in a blaze of glory
right,
a lot of times.
right.
But so, and it's funny because that just came up as the energy, the message of the day right at the end of last week,
Mhm.
that, yeah, you are growing spiritually by leaps and bounds.
Right,
And some are going to stay along and celebrate you, and others are not. And that's
right,
okay.
right,
Your job is to stay in your high vibration
right,
and allow them to have their journey.
right. Yes, excellent. We're saying the same thing, but and another point to remember is when we're in that higher vibration that we've worked on to clear what was blocking us, to really claim it, it can feel lonely at first because you haven't met the other people. It's like you're in between elevator floors, right? And then you get
Mm-hmm.
off and nobody's there. They will come, and I think it's important for people to
Yes.
know that. So it's kind of like the saying, "Don't settle."
Yeah.
It doesn't, you can bless them and love them, the other people, but you don't have to bring your vibe down to somebody else. And
Yes.
you have to be with the temporary discomfort of feeling alone.
And I'll be honest, that was why I invested in coaching for myself, was
Mhm.
to have a, an entourage, really, right?
Right,
To have
right,
a community who wanted to celebrate me, who wanted
right,
to, acknowledge me and see me at a higher level than I had
right,
already been, and
right,
constantly see me even higher than I see me.
right,
And
right.
what a game changer that is.
Yes, it is to be supported and championed. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that the people of capacity have the ability to champion you and also hold you when you're down. I mean,
Yeah.
being an entrepreneur, coaches is an entrepreneurial business. I mean, we all have challenges, but can they be there for the ups and downs? And I want to say something about the downs too, because even though I'm trained with neuroscience and the basis of creating a new with neuroscience, this is oversimplified, but a clear intention plus an elevated emotion, that's the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza,
Yes.
is how you create a new, right? And I believe in that, like the clear intent, but a lot of people don't make time to get clear what their intention is.
Mhm.
And it can take like months to get clear what you really want in your life. And then
Yes.
the elevated emotion, often people, if you've been in a low vibe, you don't know what those elevated emotions are, which is why you need a coach to help mentor you
Yeah.
to learn those. And I use 15 key empowering words that I know help the brain go to a higher level, attract higher level. But I also believe this, and I'm probably different than some of the people that are trained in neuroscience, but I also believe that you have to feel the feelings. You can't just jump
Yes.
to the new outcome that you want, because it's in your body. It's in there.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah,
and
I say that all the time. You've got to feel to heal.
right.
It's just so important,
Like you,
otherwise all you're doing, it's like inauthentic. You know,
right,
right? You could say, everything's great, I'm great, I'm great.
right,
That's not actually high vibration,
right,
because you're squashing down the stuff
right,
that's not so great, and it's still bringing down the actual vibration. You've got
right,
to release it. And in order to release it, you've got to feel it. You've got to
right.
let it process through you and just come out.
And I would just say the words over and over again of love and compassion. Like when I look at my credentials or my training or whatever, and or clients, interview me to potentially be their coach, those are great and it's important. We worked for them, but I really believe it's the love and compassion that heals.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
being with them with love and compassion. That doesn't mean you don't hold them highly accountable, but again, seeing the little child in them that was really scared during those years they weren't nurtured,
Mhm.
or when they had a failure, and just hold them in that space so they can be witnessed, and
Yes.
then help them claim the intentions they want to manifest.
Absolutely. So how did you apply this when you were going through your health challenge with the breast cancer?
Well, it's interesting because I had been a coach for quite a number of years when I got diagnosed. Um, I think I had to reprioritize what was important to me in my life, and not run around so much race. Like I think I was running on adrenaline. I also, being a single mom too.
Yeah.
So it was prioritizing and balancing and learning what feels like a yes and what feels like a no.
Mm.
And it's not just learning to say no to things. It's like feeling it in your body. Is this a yes? And, I
Mhm.
did an alternative route to healing. I didn't do the radiation or tamoxifen. I did have the lumpectomy, and I changed my entire lifestyle. And again, I was early stage. I might have made different choices if it was something else, and even people who've read my book said it's very evenly balanced, whether you've had conventional or alternative or a combination of both, which is what I did. But when you make that commitment to change your lifestyle, and this is really important for people to understand, because it's if you go the alternative route, it's a lot of work.
Yes.
A lot of work to totally change your diet.
Hmm.
I walk 5 miles a day. I hike every weekend. I love it. And, cancer can't survive in a well oxygenated body. So I got very physical. I've always loved athletics, but that's a part of my life. So I had to really change my way of being. And, part of the great thing about being a coach is you have flexibility. So I live by a lake right now. So in between clients, I go out and do my 5 mile walk.
Yeah.
It could be at 2 p.m. It could be 10 a.m. And in the summer, it's very hot here in North Carolina, humid. So I would schedule my clients after I got my walk in. So I get the walk in. So,
Nice.
but I think I changed my whole lifestyle, and also became very clear of my thoughts and my negative thoughts. And when can this go to fear? So here's a little tool, and we all go there, and especially what we've all just been through for the last couple of years, our world's been rocked. But I also use images. So one of the things I use that the clients have liked is when I feel it coming at me, the negative stuff or some negative thought, and I think I'm going to go sink down, I visualize a big red stop sign right in the front of my head. It's not allowed in, like stop.
Mm.
Most of the time I can stop it, but not always. But I think sometimes you can't just logically get out of it. So like that stop sign is something I can grab, like visualize that.
Yeah. That's a great idea. I love that.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love blending it. And I love blending words too, like because I've been a writer for so long, but one word can create a shift.
Hmm.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
one word that I love teaching clients when I do relationship coaching, and this is a huge word for a lot of them, men and women, is cherished.
Mm.
Have you ever been cherished? That will open up so much.
Wow.
They'll open up blocks. It will open up possibilities. And often when I've asked that, often there's a lot of tears that come.
Yeah.
And then, well, even though that can be uncomfortable, that's when the healing can happen, like right away.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, the mantra would be, I allow myself to be cherished. And then track evidence of when you're cherished. And it can
Yeah.
be buying yourself flowers, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, like you said, and
Yeah.
it's special for yourself.
And being cherished doesn't have to come from outside of you.
Right.
I mean, you're
Right.
cherished by the divine, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
so then allow that to pour through you and cherish yourself. Yeah.
Right. But if you've never claimed it before, that's really new to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And especially we go back to the overgivers, right? Overgivers
Yes.
aren't focusing on being cherished. They're focused on cherishing others.
Cherishing
right?
everybody else. Yeah.
Right. So cherished is a really amazing word to create shifts.
Yes. That is a
And
fantastic one.
And I know you know this too, but when you introduce something like this, right, there can be a lot of sadness. Like I was coaching
Yes.
somebody going through a divorce, and she said, I've never felt cherished in my life, and just sobbed, 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 sobbed. And that was okay. It needed to come out.
Yeah.
And then once it's released, there's openings, right? And
so because once you release it, now you've made room to be cherished, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So going back to the book and the cancer journey healing, I never saw myself as a cancer coach, although I have a lot of cancer clients. I've had a lot of cancer clients. I really see myself helping them build the worthiness and the self-esteem and the self-love. But where we have this mental health crisis in the world right now for the younger people, I would just love everybody to know that it's really important to get the emotional stresses out of the body.
Yes.
Before you get sick.
Yes.
And to talk to somebody, and it's okay to talk to somebody. It's healthy to talk to somebody. And again, we all have these stresses. You did nothing wrong, and it's really important.
Yeah. And just remembering that when you heal this, you're generally healing it for the rest of your lineage.
Yes.
So you are doing all of your children and their children, right? Everybody a favor.
Right. And there's a lot of
this.
emphasis on diet, which is really important. And I was on a very rigid diet. And I try to follow a lot of it, but I can't all the time. And I'm tall, I'm 5'8". I look shorter sitting down because long leg, but I almost looked anorexic. Like I was like a size 2 when I followed that, so rigid. Wow. And it didn't feel good to me to be that thin.
Yes.
I wasn't trying to diet, but I'm looking, it's really key to give up sugar, wheat, and dairy if you had cancer, right? But I was so rigid, like to the point. And then I said, I want to live and enjoy life too. Like I can have a piece of cake at my daughter's wedding. Like one piece of cake isn't gonna on cancer, but you do live. I live, or other cancer survivors I know live at a higher sense of alert. Like every day is a gift. There's no guarantees. So I do say yes a lot more to things that I want to do.
Things that are in alignment for you.
Yes. And I love the word alignment. Yes. And it's also easier if it's not aligned to not allow it in, because like
absolutely. Yeah. Making that no the sentence, as you said.
At the end of the sentence. Yes.
Love it.
And also I just think there's so much hope out there. And so if anybody is listening that is a cancer survivor, just to know there's just so much hope out there. There's so many healing modalities, there's amazing things. And I want to go back to the claim the worthiness though, because this is intimate. This is kind of, so when I first went to 3 different healers that told me claiming my worthiness to live would extend my longevity. This is key for everybody to understand that.
And they all told you that?
3 different ones, a naturopath, a shaman, and I forget what the other healer was. One, the shaman had a brother. This is really key. He was given 3 months to live. And Keith was the shaman's name. You won't know who he is. Keith said to his brother, do you want to live? Do you want to live? Do you want to live? And he just kept on coaching him. Do you want to live? how much do you want to live? He's cancer free like several years later now. But this is, so it's subconscious. You don't know that you have, right? But it's not just for cancer. So a lot of us, when we have a trying time in life, whether it's financial, I'm sure there's a lot of people now in the pandemic, right? Or have gone through the pandemic, whether it's financial, whether it's relationship, whether it's divorce, it's like they could have a subconscious death wish. So claiming your worthiness to live is key for all of us.
I think too, hearing those messages, right? So you heard from 3 different healers the same message, and understanding that those messages were sent to you for a reason. And like in your case, it was to tell you how to live because you still had a lot of work to do.
Right. And I feel it's my mission. I rebranded my whole business around worthiness because I want everyone to live knowing they're worthy. I mean, and claiming it, and especially, you know, the younger generation right now, we've got to get these 0 to 6 is when these beliefs are formed.
Yes.
And, you know, even when we deal with the mental health crisis of teens and young adults, it started long before right now.
Yeah.
And if there's any parents listening, 0 to 6 is when you wire in the worthiness piece.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And but the good news for the adults that we've talked about is it can be rewired. And, you know, you and I do that in our businesses.
Yes.
And so it's very hopeful, but it will open up doors that weren't open before.
We go back and we reparent our little inner child, right?
We do.
So yeah, it doesn't mean all hope is lost if you didn't get that.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you brought up the inner child though, too, because once you get acquainted with the inner child that didn't get what he or she needed, we have a relationship now with that inner child for the rest of our lives. Like every day, you tuning in and asking little girl or little boy within, what do you need? Do you need a hug? Do you need rest? Do you need a nap? Do you need playmates? Do you need a little bit of my time? You know, you have to have that conversation every single day.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah. You have a new best friend, your little kid.
I know, right? It's such a great reminder. And, you know, it's funny because there, you know, from a certain age, we get so caught up in taking care of our own children, but truly in taking care of your inner child, it's going to put you in that state of being an even better parent to your own children. So, you know, still prioritizing it, even if you actually have your children to take care of.
And there's another message I just have for the world right now. And because a lot of people are feeling disempowered through the changes we've just been through, is our essence and who we are not our circumstances. So when we find ourselves in challenging circumstances, we are not the circumstances, and bring it back to who are we and what do we need? Again, communicating with the inner child, what do we want? But I actually believe we're going to have a much more beautiful world.
Yes, I agree. And you know, as you say that, I'm thinking, I always say it's happening for you, not to you.
Right.
And, you know, unfortunately, sometimes the spirit world has a bit of a different version of a gift that most of us like. But those are your gifts because they are there to help you grow. Those challenges, those things that happen, they're all about taking you to the next level, which that would be the spirit world's version of a gift. So, you know, and that's why I do this show, you know, that whole idea of breakdown before the breakthrough. So just knowing that it's okay. And the other side is beautiful.
And I want to just say something along that, because that was an excellent insight. So when we start to rewire in worthiness, or we're wiring in I matter, that's another core belief, or I am enough. They all kind of interrelated, right? When it's first brought to consciousness, right, we might see exaggerated levels of not having it. Like, oh boy, I don't really feel worthy. I don't feel enough. I don't matter. And we might see for the next 24 to 48 hours after somebody listens to this, or we might see a lot of examples of not feeling worthy and mattering. And because now it's conscious.
Yeah.
And if it didn't, and it can hurt when we see this stuff, but the other thing I say about when it hurts and there's pain is if it wasn't painful, you wouldn't let it go.
Mhm.
So it's coming, the
Yes.
pain is coming up. You're seeing, oh, wow, I really beat up on myself. I didn't treat myself very well. And then love yourself through it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I have a friend who says the universe kind of taps her on the shoulder and it'll tap again and she doesn't pay attention. So it'll poke, it'll start poking
Yes.
and she doesn't pay attention and then smack,
Right.
and that's it, until it gets really uncomfortable.
Right.
We're not invested to do anything about it. It's
Right.
that discomfort that makes us go to the next level. And that's why
That's
it
the
was,
breakthrough to bust.
that was the
Yes.
gift. That's why
Yes.
it was the gift for you.
Right. Right. And I think it's really important to celebrate ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like you mentioned, different examples around the home that you do, but especially when we do this courageous work,
Yeah.
to bare our soul to somebody, to be seen in our vulnerabilities.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, that's where we connect more richly and deeply with people, but it's not for the faint of heart to do this work.
No, and honestly, you said about cherished. My word tends to be grace, giving yourself some grace
Right.
and knowing that everything that you have done up to this point has been about you becoming who you are now,
Right.
and have some grace for that. Have some grace for how you've reacted in situations, how you felt about things. Your feelings are valid and
Right.
okay. There's
Right.
no need to beat yourself up. Just feel them and then heal, and that's it.
Right. And I liken it to grief. When I've coached different people through grief, a lot of times when they've come to me, they haven't grieved the person, the loss. And a lot of reasons people don't grieve is because they're afraid they'll be overwhelmed. Oh, this will just
Yeah.
do me in, right? So once they trust me, they'll start sharing and grieving. But I'll say to them, schedule in 20 minutes a day to grieve. That way, it's not overwhelming. But I would just say, even with our feelings, if we feel sad, allow the sadness to go through the body. You don't have to stay in it, but allow it, or anger, or whatever the emotion is. But just schedule time to be that, if acquainted with that emotion.
You can imagine you have like a little volume dial, right?
Right.
Like, the old fashioned radios where you turn them, right?
Right.
And so, you have that control over when the emotions come over you, the grief comes over you, you can turn it up and let it out. And then when you've had enough, you can turn it back down.
Right.
And
Very
it doesn't
empowering.
have to, yeah, it doesn't have to completely hijack your entire day or life, or right.
Right.
You just let it out in those moments when you have a few where
Mhm.
you can process.
Right. Right. Well, I think you're doing really important work with this show.
Oh,
It's really
thank you.
important for people to see people go through their challenges and how they remake their lives, how they find their essence again, how they find their divine light, shine their light in the world. We're all here to
And
shine our light.
that's part of it too. Is my hope is that people seeing other people overcome the challenges, and oftentimes the stories might not be so far apart. It
Right.
might, there may be some similarities, and so then building up that worthiness, like, well, wait a second, I can certainly get through this too.
Right. Right.
Yeah. What
Yeah.
is
I
it
think
that I know, of course, worthiness is the main theme for you, but what is it that you, as you went through your challenge and things came up, or what you wished you knew as you went through it, what you want people, that nugget, that wisdom nugget that you want people to have?
I would say build a tribe. Going through cancer is a really lonely journey.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but a tribe of aligned people, like-minded others. My breast surgeon said to me that she knew I was writing the book. She was supportive, but didn't support my choices, but lovingly. But she said to me, my book was important because the information I was giving, she's mandated by insurance to see 8 patients an hour. She said, I could not possibly share what you're sharing with the diet and the lifestyle and the mindset. So I would just say build a tribe.
Yeah.
it was really lonely. And I also don't think I let people know how scared I was. I was trying to be stoic for two teenagers at the time, 15 and 19. But I would say, let go of being stoic.
Thank you for saying that, because you just actually reminded me of I had a family member who went through breast cancer, and that was kind of what she did. She was strong about it, right? Oh, it's okay. It's no big deal. It's just more of an inconvenience than anything else, right?
Right.
And so then that was sort of how she was treated, was,
Right.
whatever. It's not a big deal. And then she got upset that there
Right.
wasn't, yeah.
Right.
So you don't have to be anything for anybody else. Just be authentic to you.
Right. But this is interesting. So when you have surgery, the lumpectomy, you're an outpatient, right? So
Mhm.
you go in, you have the lump removed, and then you come home that night, right?
Yeah.
To the people around me, it was like I got a tooth pulled.
Yeah.
To me, I was changed forever.
Yeah.
The change is you lose your sense of innocence.
Yeah.
You realize you are going to die someday, right? But you get it at a very and then when you're waiting for all the pathology reports to come in, that's a long, excruciating wait. You don't get them right away, right? You
Mhm.
don't know if you're going to live or die. It's like walking on eggshells, right?
Oh,
But to the world around you, oh, you're home, you're okay.
yeah. Everything's
And
fine.
it what your this is the message I'd like everyone to know. Your psyche is changed forever.
Wow.
Your psyche is changed forever. So one of the, I don't want to scare people, but one of the things is people fear recurrence. And so there's meditative tools to help, do that, and tapping and different things, but you're not the same. In some ways you become better. Like I've said yes to a lot of different things, but there's a part of me that feels probably more fragile than I did before.
Hmm.
Because before you thought, when I look at different challenges in life, just plow through, you can handle it, you can handle it. I could not control what my body did.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you lose that sense of power.
Yeah.
It was an illusion. But on
Yeah.
the other hand, on the plus side is I strongly believe in the body's innate ability to heal. And
For sure.
the faster you get aligned with that and have that as part of your mantra, that's really important. But
Hmm.
I think I would like anybody who has a family member with breast cancer or any kind of cancer to know that this person's psyche has probably been changed forever. And it wasn't just getting the cancer out of the body.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really powerful. Yeah. And I think that's something we all need to know. And I
Mhm.
think that for the person going through it, that's why it's so important to be authentic with your feelings, and
Right.
find someone you can talk to and be
But
candid.
when you're going through it, and this is very common, I've saw it with a lot of the patients in the mind body program, myself included. At the beginning, you're just on adrenaline, right?
Yeah.
So you just like you're waiting for the results. You get the results. You're going to be okay, whatever. You're on adrenaline. Do.
Yeah.
The crash. This is another thing. The crash of what really happened didn't hit me till 6 months later,
Wow.
and I just remember sitting and sobbing,
Wow.
sobbing. Because other than that, I was just okay, back to taking care of the kids, back to work, whatever.
Yeah.
And then you're on this treadmill again, right? I was, meditating 20 minutes a day. Now I meditate 2 hours a day. I couldn't even sit for 20 minutes back then. That was like, we had to do it as part of the program because the data went to it's Harvard affiliated program. So everything had to be evidence-based. So they would take our journal sheets and, analyze them. And we had to meditate 20 minutes a day. But yeah, and it was 6 months later, I crashed, just sat there and cried all weekend, just cried, like, oh my God, I can't believe I had cancer.
Yeah. Good for you though, because you let it out.
Yeah.
You let that out. Oh,
But I
yeah.
think for most people, I know it's a delayed reaction. It's not
Yeah.
right after the surgery.
No, that makes sense.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm. Thank you
So,
so much, Gail. This
oh,
has been so wonderful. And you are doing such wonderful things in this world. I love it.
Thank you.
You know, not just with adults, but also with children, and helping with, you know, bringing forth a whole new version of humans
Yeah, I
coming
I
into
hope
this world.
parents really, really listen. Like just one other thing, a lot of parents will say, "What age will you take my child?" I don't want your child. I want you, the parent, so you can teach the child this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's so important, you know, and again, like I said earlier, when you heal it for yourself, you end up healing it for the child as well, but then you can also teach them
Right.
skills. Yeah.
And the five principles of high self-esteem, um, which I've outlined before, but it's fun to learn them. It's fun to learn, like just the statement you just said about imperfection, and just learning that, you know, excellence, not perfection, because we weren't taught these either.
Mm-mm.
So it's
No.
not.
No, I remember, you know, getting spankings for like getting homework wrong. You know what
Right,
I mean? Like,
right,
what did I learn? That being wrong was bad, and you get in
right,
trouble for that, and right,
right,
getting grounded,
right,
and things like that for wrong
right.
answers.
Right.
And
But
so
then I
yeah.
think we can go, then I think what we can do is then overcompensate with our own kids. Like I wanted to give my kids everything I didn't get right.
Mhm.
And I probably went the other way, right? I
Yeah.
probably, focused on making them so important, when they were younger. Um, but it all balances out. And, we each
Yes.
have our own path. They have their own path, right? And your children
Yes.
have their own path.
And that's it. And my goodness, you know, as somebody with two kids who are so completely different,
Right.
you know, you don't
Mine too.
parent each kid the same way.
Right, right.
Right?
Absolutely. But I just would like everyone also to know that this mental health crisis, like we're hearing about the war and we're hearing about COVID, and this is our future, this is our generation. Like, let's pay attention to what is going on with them. And so many of them don't even know how to articulate it yet.
Yeah.
So it's really our job to love them up
Mm-hmm. Yes.
for who they are, not what they do.
Yes. I love that. Oh, and I think that is a perfect thought to end on. Gail,
Okay,
thank you so much for being here and sharing your story. Will you tell everybody how they can find
sure.
you?
Sure. My website is claimyourworthiness.com. And you can find me on social media at Coach Gail Jones on Facebook and Coach Gail Jones on Instagram.
Wonderful. Yeah, go follow, check her out, and, you know, reach out if you need any support from either one of us. And thank you so much for being here, for listening through.
Oh, one other quick
And
thing. On my
oh, good.
homepage of my website, there is a free guided meditation on
Oh,
worthiness. It's 13 minutes.
absolutely.
It's a real fun exercise to do.
Wonderful. Yes, do that. And so thank you so much for being
Thank you
here.
so
And
much for having
remember,
me.
yes, remember to keep pushing through because there is a spark in you. Thank you. Mwah.
Thank you.
And there we go.